It is now my pleasure to introduce our platform party. Dr. Sherry Everett's Appalachian State Chancellor, Mr. Edward Boyles, Managing Director, Wells Fargo Securities, and the son of the late Harlan E. Boyles, and today's featured speaker, Dr. Bonnie Schaefer, owner of Westglow Resort and Spa and former CEO of Claire's Stores. I now invite Chancellor Everett to bring greetings.
Good morning. Thank you, Dean Norris. It's my pleasure to join you today, and I'd like to express my thanks to the business leaders, faculty, staff, students, and special guests who are in attendance today. We are honored that you have chosen to take time out of your busy schedules to be here on Appalachian's campus. Your commitment to Appalachian State University is important to us, and as Dean Norris mentioned, hearing from and engaging with business leaders help prepare our students for their future. Dr. Bonnie Schaefer is a special friend of our university, and I know you will greatly enjoy hearing from her. I would also like to thank Mr. Edward Boyles for his ongoing support of the Boyles Distinguished CEO Lecture Series and Appalachian. He has been a great advocate and friend to Appalachian for many years. We're delighted that you've joined us today. Dean Norris will now introduce our featured CEO speaker.
Thank you, Chancellor Everett, for your comments and for joining us here today. It is now my pleasure to introduce our featured speaker, Dr. Bonnie Schaefer. As a way of introduction, I would like to share a short video with you of Dr. Schaefer. Dr. Schaefer was featured on Makers, a women's leadership broadcast launched by AOL in 2012 to highlight the stories of America's most influential women. Makers is one of the largest collections of women's stories ever assembled and features the stories of prominent women, including former Secretary of State Hillary Rodham Clinton, media mogul and philanthropist Oprah Winfrey, network news pioneer Katie Couric, Facebook Chief Operating Officer Sheryl Sandberg, and comedian Ellen DeGeneres, and U.S. Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, to name just a few. We'll now play the video featuring Dr. Schaefer.
When I was growing up, they would call it being a rebel. Today, it would just be a strong woman. I thought I could do anything. My mother didn't think I could. My parents were old school. Their attitude about women growing up and women in the workplace was far different than it is today. I grew up in the days of I Dream of Jeannie, where she would pop out of the bottle and call the guy master. You know, what kind of message does that send? I got married when I was 23, and I was married to a very violent man, violent and angry and physically, abusive. But it didn't occur to me that I could live on my own and be a strong woman until I began to see more and more of a presence of that strong woman. And it was really embodied in Gloria Steinem. I thought, wow, who is this woman? I need to listen to her. It gave me the strength to walk away from a horrible situation, walk away and never look back. My father made me start from the bottom up, working at Claire's Stores. And I started sitting on the floor, binning and sorting merchandise for inventory, and selling, and merchandising stores, and working my way up. And it was very difficult because I was working in a company of men in suits sitting around a table going, what does the woman want? It was almost comical. And I thought to myself, if I ever took over this company, which I had in my head I was going to one day, that it would be run very differently. Women would be in the positions of decision-making. My father had a stroke in 2002. and my sister and I stepped in. We were promoted to acting co-chairman and co-CEOs, put on a kind of probation period by the board. And I think if we were men, I know if we were men, it wouldn't have been acting. It would have been a no-brainer. We knew exactly what we were doing. And we had amazing results. We more than doubled, almost tripled shareholder value. We were able to replace a lot of the positions that were held by men. We had a female COO, we had a female head of marketing, female head of construction, female head of real estate. We were able to have females run a company geared to females. As I got more comfortable in my career, in my own skin, I started to look outside of myself and say, wow, what can I do to make a difference in the world? What can I do to help other women? Because what if I didn't have the strength to walk away? What if I didn't have the resources? It was absolutely surreal. In my wildest dreams, when I was 20 years old, I could never have imagined that one day Gloria Steinem would be giving me an award for just doing something that is right.
Just a little bit more about Bonnie. Spending the summer months in North Carolina, Bonnie is involved in many of the High Country's community organizations. She's founding member of the Appalachian Women's Fund, which focuses on improving the lives of women and girls through grants, mentoring, and advocacy. She's also a supporter of Power of the Purse of the High Country Women's Fund, which helps women take major steps out of poverty. Bonnie and Jamie are also dedicated arts patrons whose longtime support and generous sponsorship of an Appalachian Summer Festival led them to provide a major gift to transform Farthing Auditorium into a state-of-the-art performance venue, the Schaefer Center for the Performing Arts. The Schaefers are also active supporters of the University's Center for Judaic, Holocaust, and Peace Studies, provided the seed money to build the first and only synagogue in the High Country, established a new shelter for the Watauga Humane Society, and assisted the Blowing Rock Equestrian Preserve in raising funds to build new stables and an indoor equestrian arena. We are so very fortunate, Bonnie, to have you here with us today, and it's now my pleasure to introduce you to our audience, Dr. Bonnie Schaefer.
Good morning. Well, now you know everything about me, so I don't really have to talk. I'd like to begin by thanking Appalachian State University's Chancellor, Dr. Sherry Everts, the Walker College School of Business Dean, Heather Norris. See, I'm nervous, okay? Mr. Edward Boyles, Haley Childers, and everyone involved with the CEO lecture series, and all of you for taking your time to come here and listen to me. So I hope I don't put you to sleep. Okay. I'll start, well, I'm not going to bore you with the details of my childhood. I never thought that I would end up on this stage talking to you about being a CEO. But that's not what I thought about when I was a kid. I thought about things like, I was going to be an astronaut or an actress or a fireman or a neurosurgeon. I don't know, anything but. So I'll start with my first year in college. I went to the University of Miami, which is about an hour from the house that I grew up in. My mother, wanting to get me out of the house, dropped me, my little sister, and my trunk off at the university dormitory and quickly left, forgetting my little sister, who was sitting on my trunk crying her eyes out. True, you can't make this up. So there I was with my sister, no car and no clue. which was a far cry from CEO. I majored in liberal arts, finally got rid of my little sister, majored in liberal arts and minored in having fun, or vice versa. Well, they call it suntan U. After a year of school in Miami, I had the opportunity to go to school in Italy, and I jumped on it. I changed my major to archaeology and Renaissance art until I had to stand in the freezing rain looking at Etruscan ruins. So I changed it to Renaissance art only and spent a lot of time having fun in museums and out of museums. And after living the good life in Florence for about a year, I was forced to go home by my parents, who said, "Well, what are you going to do now?" With exasperation, I might add. So I said, "I think I'd like to be a psychologist." To which they answered, and I quote, "Get a job." Followed by, "Don't you think you should get married, move out of the house, or other such nonsense?" So I went to work as a medical assistant for my then boyfriend, and having no experience, learned on the job. That didn't work out, not the job, the boyfriend. I quickly boomeranged into a marriage with the first guy I dated after that. Bad idea. After 2 years of misery, I got a divorce, moved to New York City with my parents' blessings and subsidies to go to nursing school. And I loved it. I loved the study of medicine. Just not sick people. True story. The experience of clinical rotations in the hospital was a veritable nightmare for me. A perfect example, I don't want to gross anybody out, but I had to do a fecal depaction under the guidance of my nursing instructor, 4 classmates, and right in the middle of it, I became nauseated, and I pulled my gloved hand out and over my head. Now, this was New York City, okay? Over my head, you can't make this up, ran down the stairs and all the way out to First Avenue, followed by my nursing instructor and 4 nursing students and a bunch of taxi cabs thinking I was trying to hail a cab when all I was trying to do was to get this thing as far away from me as possible. I hated it. I hated nursing school. I cracked the chancellor up. So I ran all the way back, the 4 blocks back to the dormitory, and I became a bona fide germaphobe. Now, you may be asking yourselves, what does this have to do with being a CEO? Nothing. My father had a company that started out small, expanded, and went public. He gave me a job working in the business, and then he fired me for my less than stellar work ethic. So I went on a job search, which was a lot of fun. Now, mind you, I was still young and still clueless with no experience. So I begged for an entry-level position. There have been many other accolades over the years, and you can find them on our website, www.westglow.com. www.westglow.com. Okay. I'm very proud of my wife, my amazing wife, Jamie, and all of our employees, just as I was proud of my team at Claire's. So I've been very blessed in my life and in my retirement. Even before my retirement, for that matter, I've had the opportunity to get involved in many causes dear to my heart, some of them globally, some locally. It's always been a tradition in my family to give back. This is what my late father stressed to his children when he was alive. So I am involved in a myriad of causes, including women's issues, Jewish causes, animal rights, human trafficking, domestic abuse, the arts, and health issues. Let me say a word about human trafficking. It has become such a lucrative business all over the world. One of the reasons is because people are recyclable. Unlike drug trafficking, people can be used over and over and over again. I've been to brothels in Africa, India, and Nepal, traveling with Equality Now, APNIAP, and Donor Direct Action Fund.
I've also attended conferences where the horrors of the trade were exposed in a most graphic and unsettling manner. This is reality. Little girls, children, including little boys, and of course young women, are lured by the promise of a better life. Where'd that come from? Lured by the promise of a better life, or just sometimes kidnapped off the street, as depicted in the Little Scene movie Trade. Trade was based on a true story and shows how a child is kidnapped, drugged, smuggled across the border from Mexico to the United States, and sold on the internet to the highest bidder. And it's happening now, even as we speak, right here in the United States, all over the world, as well as all over the world. Ending sex trafficking is not an easy fight. It requires so much, and no matter what we do, it's still only a drop in the bucket. The United States is responsible for 25% of sex tourism. So we're a quarter responsible for what happens out there. Amnesty International is trying now to legalize prostitution and all over the world, which is really a travesty. I'm not going to go into that. Okay. In 2012, segue right into that, I received an honorary doctorate. Finally, I'm a doctor without sick people. In humane letters, a doctor of humane letters. Okay, right here on this, no more fecal depactions, right here on this stage in ASU, from ASU rather. Ironically, I'm now on the board of a hospital in Miami, having gone to nursing school, worked as a CEO, and having an honorary degree. Full circle, so my path, albeit circuitous, brought me to this stage today. This brings me to the conclusion of my lessons learned along this circuitous path, which is always find something you love to do and it will never be boring. Never let anyone tell you, I see people leaving, I've bored them. Okay. Never let anyone tell you that you can't. The only person holding you back is you, so if you don't go after what you want, you'll never have it. If you don't ask, the answer will always be no. And if you don't step forward, you'll always be in the same place. Aim high, you've got nothing to lose. Or what have you got to lose? Be open to the journey. E.M. Forster said, I had to let go of the life I planned many times to open the door to the life that was waiting for me. And that's me in a nutshell. And I'll leave you with this. This is great. Mirror, mirror on the wall, I'll always get up after I fall. And whether I run, walk, or have to crawl, I'll set my goals and achieve them all. Thank you. Oh, sit down. Wow. I hope you guys get extra credit for this.
Thank you, Dr. Schaefer, for sharing your amazing story, and you are a true inspiration. Our students had the opportunity to submit questions and enter a contest to win an iPad mini. And I think the winning person is Brooke Cohn. Are you here, Brooke? There she is. And so I'll read the question, and then Dr. Schaefer can answer your question. The question is, Dr. Schaefer, did you ever expect to end up as a CEO? Did you believe you always had the confidence to do that, or did you gain that confidence through your previous positions in the company?
No. I never thought I'd end up as a CEO. I never wanted to work for my family. I never thought I'd end up in the place I did, seriously. But working in, as I said before, working within the company and being able to work my way up gave me the confidence that I lacked. And if you excuse the expression, I used it earlier with the women's group, I grew a set of self-esteem. Okay? Hey, sorry. Sorry, Chancellor. Okay. But, Abe Lincoln said, always bear in mind that your own resolution to succeed is more important than any other. So, if who asked that question? Grow some self-esteem. Thank you for your question.
Bonnie, thank you again for your inspiring comments and for taking the time to share your experience with our students. Please join me in another round of applause for Dr. Bonnie Schaefer. And now we'll have a special presentation. Bonnie, if you would come up, and Edward as well, and join me here at the podium. The symbol of the Boyles CEO Lecture Series is the American eagle. This eagle symbolizes strength, gracefulness, keenness of vision, and power of flight. Bonnie, your passion for what you do clearly comes through, and you possess these characteristics. We are pleased to present you with this crystal eagle in appreciation for your participation in today's event, and it is our honor and pleasure to have you here with us today. I cannot thank you enough for what you've shared with us. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the Academy. Now, thank you so much. This is great. This is wonderful. I'm honored. Thank you so much. Especially from you.
I'd like to say a special word of thanks to our students, faculty, staff, and special guests for attending today's lecture. We hope you enjoyed our speaker as much as I did, and hope you're inspired to be as engaged and passionate a leader and as positive an impact on the world and our community as Bonnie Schaefer is. Guests who are invited to attend the luncheon, you may proceed to the floor of the Convocation Center. Students, your ID cards may be scanned in the concourse level as you leave. Thank you again from Appalachian State University and the Walker College of Business. Have a wonderful day.
With a company that was a subcontractor for IBM in Boca called HL And I got a roommate to offset expenses and realized that, I was on my own. So after 1 year of working my way up in this little tiny company, in a little cubicle, my father hired me back. And I thought, yes, wow, now I'm going to make big money. I'm going to have a corner office. I'm going to be an executive. I'm going to have all the perks that come with it. And wrong, again, okay? I had to start at the very bottom and work my way up. You know, in the words of Winston Churchill, if you're going through hell, keep going. Just because I went to work in the family business does not mean, listen carefully, it was not handed on a silver platter. Trust me, it was not. I started out at the bottom making minimum wage. I began to develop a goal. I was going to show everyone what a great work ethic I had. And I set my sights on the top job. And that was going to take a lot of work and many years. And then I had my older sister, Marla, to contend with. And she wasn't going to let me get past her. If anything, though, I overcompensated. I overcompensated for the fact that I was the boss's daughter and did not want preferential treatment. So I got to the office before my father did, which was quite a feat because I lived an hour away and he only lived 15 minutes away. and left after he did. And, oh, lost my notes. It was an interesting time because working for a company devoted to selling items to girls and women was being run by men. My sister was the token woman on the board, and most of the women working in the company reported to men. And most of the women had the tougher jobs, such as, field positions, store level, and the like. And let me tell you, though, most of what I learned about the company, I learned from these women in the field. The field operations, being a retail chain, that's where everything happens, and that's where all the parts of a company come together, because when that gate goes up in the morning, it's showtime, for every store. Our emphasis was on customer service, and that set us apart from many of our other fellow retailers, plus the fact that we were a niche player. And after a turn in each department, for example, like real estate and marketing and merchandising, and not really merchandising, what was it? It was, I didn't do merchandising. Visual merchandising, that's what it was. It was so long ago, I forgot. After a turn in each department, I finally earned the title of vice president. But there were a lot of us vice presidents. And my job was to oversee the real estate in the Southeast U.S., which included Puerto Rico, and also eventually St. Thomas. This was my first venture working with people from other cultures, and which I loved, by the way. And it set up a foray into the European markets. My father and my sister and I traveled to Europe. We traveled to France, Switzerland, and England, looking to acquire other companies with the same footprint like ourselves, so that we can acquire them, retrofit the stores, and expand. We needed the existing infrastructure. So I eventually became Senior VP of European Operations, and during that time was made chairman of our joint venture in Japan. Now, having stores and offices and employees in Europe and a joint venture in Japan was challenging also. We also had a franchise with the Al Shaya Group based in Kuwait. They had 4 malls in Kuwait. It started when Mohammed Al Shaya, a consummate entrepreneur, called my father, also a consummate entrepreneur, and asked him if he can do a franchise in the Middle East. And my father, being Jewish, pondered this and decided, why not link arms with like-minded people in the Arab states? And so began a long and prosperous relationship with our Arab friends. However, me, being female and a Jew myself, my father felt it best that I not travel there, so I didn't get to go. He sent the guys. Even doing business in Japan was tough because women were, and still probably are, marginalized. And I felt it from the first time I was there. Europe was a little bit different, still very patriarchal, but a little more relaxed. But then we have that in the States too. Don't forget, women still only make 77 cents on the dollar. Say that 3 times fast, 77. Okay. I could get into a long rant on that, but I won't. One of the most influential women in my life, as you saw, Gloria Steinem, really gave me the courage to, rise above all that misogyny. I won't get into that now. The experience of traveling to other countries, I would leave on a Sunday, travel to Zurich, Paris, Birmingham, England, and sometimes Luxembourg, and living out of hotels, taking my employees to restaurants, really gave me insight into what my standards were. The hotel, remember I'm a germaphobe, okay. The hotels in Switzerland and Japan were the cleanest. And there were many times while traveling with employees, one of whom sitting here right now, it's just, let me put it this way. They learned not to unpack until I inspected the room. These experiences would serve me well in my life after Claire's. Anyway, getting back to Claire's. Pleased with my performance in the company with international operations, I was promoted to vice chairman by my father, much to my sister's chagrin. Let me digress for a minute and tell you that the challenges of working for a family company were vast. Not only did I had to contend with employees that didn't want the boss's daughter around, that included my sister. For a time, she got used to it. But there were people, mostly men, sorry guys, okay, who were constantly jockeying for position and promotion. And then there was the board of directors. I was invited to join the board, and I could tell they just weren't pleased. Having two Schaefer sisters working and now on the board, wow. But then again, my father was a very formidable man that nobody was willing to go up against, including me. I once told my father I'd like to become CEO, and he retorted actually, "That's my job." Okay. Eventually, it happened under unfortunate circumstances. My father had a stroke in 2002, and my sister and I clung to the hope that he would recover and get back to work. He was 87 at the time. In the meantime, our board reluctantly named my sister and me acting CEO and co-chairman. We were shocked. What did acting mean? We were actually doing it. Dividing up the responsibilities, we certainly knew this company better than any outsider. The board wanted to search for a new chairman/CEO, so we showed them we could do it ourselves. So we began to my sister and I made necessary changes within the company by promoting the best of the best people to positions in which they could help to facilitate growth, and then focused on succession planning for everyone. The lessons I learned was that nobody is indispensable, and that we certainly weren't about to go out of business if one or more key people left, or if anybody left, for that matter, or became ill, etc. The fact is that it happens all the time, and if there's no understudy, if you will, what then? And so we stressed that everyone had to train their replacement. Now, I know this sounds really harsh, but how else do you move up? How else do you move up the ladder if there was nobody behind you to move in? Having set up a succession plan, we realized that we had none for ourselves. So we talked at length about it and came to the conclusion that we had to look at eventually selling this amazing company. It was, sad because our father founded it and passed it on to us, and it was a painful process because as big as the organization was, and it was really big, it was still a family to us. And being a public company, trading on the New York Stock Exchange, we owed it to our shareholders. We also owed it to ourselves. Working hard, never resting on our laurels, took its toll, and we approached the board with this suggestion. Now, let me tell you, that wasn't easy. The board referred to the two of us middle-aged women as the girls. Nice. Okay. Let me digress for a moment. We were under intense pressure to comply with the new SEC rule, Sarbanes-Oxley. Even though we were already in compliance, we were still under pressure to comply. Can't figure that out. Thank you, Enron, Arthur Andersen, and the rest of the companies that wrought Sarbanes-Oxley. Anyway, we enlisted Goldman Sachs to help with the sale, and once word got out that we were selling, we received some interesting phone calls, one of which I will tell you about anecdotally. There I was in my office, and a call came in from two of my father's friends. It went like this. "Hello, Bonnie, darling." Big red flag. Big, big, big red flag. Now, I won't mention names because both of these men had huge companies, and thus they're very high profile. So it went like this. "So-and-so and I want to help you girls." There's the girls thing again. "With the sale." And I said, "Wow, gee, thanks. Wow, call this number." It was the number of Goldman Sachs. And ask for Jack Levy. Tell him what you just told me. I never heard from the men who so badly wanted to help me again. I won't go into the details of the sale, but that was a tough time. But suffice to say, it was a hard choice, like giving away a huge piece of ourselves. We consummated the sale in May of 2000 to a private equity group. I can only say for any of you who have seen the movie The Intern, it's not a great movie, but that Robert De Niro's line towards the end of the movie, spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, it's not a great movie, was his line to Anne Hathaway's character was that no one can run your business like you can. And so we left it in the hands of a company that did not run it like we could. They didn't have the passion, they didn't have the love, they didn't have the care, they didn't have the family culture. Everything changed. So, many long-term employees left. One is sitting right here in the audience, our former COO. Working alongside people for so many years forges some unbreakable bonds. I missed my former life terribly because of the people. When the company was sold, we had over 3,200 stores on 4 continents, tripled shareholder value, had 16,000 employees, give or take, and a few. And when Claire's was sold, it was fortunately one of the last big mergers and acquisitions before the window more or less closed on private equity's big deals for a time. Then this country hit a huge recession. We were out. Yay. A year and a half before the sale, my wife, Jamie, and I purchased Westglow Resort and Spa. We, or I should say Jamie, with a small team, renovated the entire place in an incredibly short span of time for the scope of the work that went into it. We then set our sights on making the spa and the restaurant, which we named after my father, world class. It was so great to be able to take the experiences from Claire's and use them at Westglow, like cleanliness, customer service, and the family culture that we enjoyed at Claire's. In time, we became inducted into the prestigious Relais and Chateau Association. Spa Finders named us best in several categories. Travel and Leisure named us number 6 best destination spa in the world. Condé Nast named us number 7 best destination resort and spa in the world. I don't know why they didn't talk to each other.